Welcome to the Indiana Basketball Postgame Show, live from Hoosier Hanks East. Now, here's your hosts, Todd, Leary, and Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome in, of course, after the game with Todd Leary, coming to you live from Hoosier Hanks East over off of College Mall Road here in Bloomington. Tonight, Indiana taking on the Ohio State Buckeyes, and Todd, they were able to pull that one out somehow. I don't know, because looking at the stats, there are some things that jump out, and you're like, we were just talking about rebounding, and you're like, what? There's some crazy things to talk about in this game. Some good, some bad, crazy, but you get the win, which is always the most important thing. But this was kind of a weird way of getting a win.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't even really know what to focus on as far as what was the key factors. I mean, Indiana got outplayed and out-rebounded so badly in this game. And it was so frustrating. But then somehow they pulled out. They made plays at the right times. They made baskets at the right times. It was just this was a weird game to come out on the winning side of it. I've never seen a team get out-rebounded as badly as they did and win the game. And it's usually such a obvious factor in who wins the game that it's just crazy.
Well, when the stats are that crazy, I mean, it doubles.
49-27. Like that, it out-rebounded 49-27. And I mean, obviously, if you watch the game, like it was just so many offensive rebounds. It seemed like every time Ohio State missed, they got the ball back. And sometimes it was 3 and 4 shots in a possession. And you just never win those games. It's crazy to think that they came out ahead in this one.
The one thing that stood out to me earlier, Indiana was getting some turnovers from Ohio State, but not a lot. But they were making hay off of those turnovers. When they just had 7 at the half, I think they had 13 points, and I'm like, that's pretty good off of just 7 turnovers. And then at the end of the game, they end up with, what'd you say, 21 or 22?
Yeah, 22 points on 14 turnovers. And what that led to, Jim, was we talked about this in the last basketball game that we did for Indiana, where they didn't get any easy baskets. And tonight, those turnovers, there's 14 turnovers by Ohio State. I'll bet you 5 or 6 of them led to baskets at the other end. And those live ball turnovers are the ones that, they always talk about cliche terms, and those are what kill you. And, this team tonight, I should feel, I think, a lot better about the win. Like I feel like a jerk right now because I'm still kind of negative on them, even though they figured out a way to win. They're 3-1 in the Big Ten.
Weird game. That's a weird game. And Jamison Battle, man, you talk about that dude. He's a badass.
Yeah, well, he got off to a really good start, and he had 11 points. This is what you got to feel pretty good about. I mean, it felt like we let him open. He made that huge 3 with 3 minutes to go. Like that's unacceptable based on what he had done so far in the game. And Indiana's ahead by 10, coming out of a timeout. He gets a wide open 3 and makes that. But he had 11 points in the first 7 minutes of the game, and he finishes with 17, making that last 3 in the final 3 minutes. So, they did a pretty good job on him after he got off to such a hot start. But, I'm just going to focus on it now so that I can start being positive after this. But the end of that first half was some of the most disgusting decisions and plays that you can watch a team. It became really hard to even want to watch the second half after Indiana finished the half the way they did. And they had a chance to have it be, whatever the score was going to be. And then Xavier taking the ball to the basket way too early. And then whatever the decisions of fouls that took place, they had so many fouls to give. Wouldn't you think that's a point when you put guys in off the bench to come in? And I mean, I know
you're thinking that way.
I mean, put guys in off the bench and let them do the fouls. The one by Malik and Bako, I know that you could tell the coach's reactions were so shocked that he just ran up and fouled with no time even coming off the clock, like 1/10 of a second. He almost fouled before the ball even came in bounds. And that's when you're just like, you shouldn't have to teach that. Like, you can't – I don't want to hear anyone go back and say, oh, it's coaching or whatever. That's not coaching. That's basketball IQ. You've probably been in that position in games, especially with AAU tournaments and games. They've probably been in that position 100 times in their lives. And that's just not recognizing the situation and knowing what's going on. And, it became pretty difficult at halftime for me to think this team was going to come out after that, one bad play and one bad decision after another and play well in the second half. And they didn't get off to a good start at all in the second half.
Oh, my God, no. Ohio State was an 8-0, which was a 10-0 run if you include the last 2 points from the end of the half. They come out on an 8-0 run, and I'm like, oh, man, they're going to put it away. But Indiana hung around somehow, even though they were out-rebounded so unbelievably bad. What was leading to that? Indiana's a bigger team, but Ohio State just seemed to be just getting after a little bit more.
Well, and so I will say this. I'll say a part of it is this. There was a couple times Indiana got easy fast break baskets because there was 5 guys for Ohio State going crashing the boards all the time.
Somebody from Indiana was already
when somebody from Indiana is at the other end. Well, I remember Malik in particular, or Mbako, in particular, one time on Indiana was able to come away with the rebound. And that was the obvious point where obviously Ohio State is sending 5 guys to the boards at all times. And it showed. Like they are just as athletic. I don't think that Ohio State is a more athletic team than Indiana, but they kind of played like the old Michigan State teams played, where they just go after everything and all 5 guys have to block out. I was going to say this, win or lose, I promise I thought this at halftime. I thought practice, probably not tomorrow because they probably have tomorrow off, but practice on Monday would be a disaster after a game like this, win or lose, because I can tell you one of the worst drills to do as a player is rebounding drills, because the coaches just make it pretty much unbearable. And it's really just wrestling. It's really just battling and wrestling. And it's Indiana team coming into their next game ought to look like they just got in a fight with a bear, because this practice has got to be a lot of blockout drills, and they're not a lot of fun.
Was this still the best win of the season for Indiana?
It has to be. Yeah. I mean, this is a team. If you watched, everyone picked Ohio State. So Ohio State's not ranked right now, I don't think, but they're right there. They lost like 3 games ago. They lost a bad game, but I mean, everyone had picked them to win. Like, this is a game that even the Ken Palms had Indiana going 1-7 in all of January, and so
they were an underdog coming into this game.
Yeah, they barely even at home, and that's pretty much unheard of. That's pretty crazy. And when you look at the 2 teams, I mean, I really can't tell you why Ohio State would have been favored. I mean, if Indiana had played smart and well throughout this game, I think they win by 20. Like, it would have probably been a blowout.
Hit a couple of 3-point shots. I noticed when Jamison Battle was 4 of 8 from behind the arc, Indiana was 1 or 2 of 5 as a team. And I know that they're not a 3-point shooting team, but that's not where they make their money. But you said all the time, they just need to make 5, 6, 7 a game. That would have made a huge difference in this game alone.
Yeah, and Indiana ends up making 5 of 12, which I think Coach Woodson's probably going to love that number. I don't love that number. But Ohio State seemed like they shot the ball pretty well because of Battle, but they were 7 for 27. So that was really a lot of the difference. And I'll give Indiana just a tiny bit of leeway and say when the team shoots 27 3-pointers, there's going to be a lot of long rebounds. The longer shots produce the tougher rebounds, and that makes sense, but not 49-27. Like, hey, let's have our stat people, analytic people take a look. Find the last game a team got out rebounded by 22 in a game and won. Like, that's
embarrassing.
Yeah, without Indiana making 23-pointer, 15 3-pointers, or some crazy fluke statistic, to be able to win a game, you got out rebounded that badly. Honestly, without going back and watching the game possession by possession, I really can't tell you how they were able to come out. Just poor shooting in the second half by Ohio State. Like, I mean, it just had to be. I'll look it up.
And knowing that Indiana has a 7-footer, knowing that they have Malik Renew, knowing that they have guys that can come off the bench, seeing it prior to this, did Chris Holtman think that, hey, this is a plan for Indiana? We've got to crash the boards on this team.
I think so. I mean, I think it's kind of Ohio State's MO anyway. I think they're a team that's built a lot like the Michigan State teams I referred to, where they just crash the boards like crazy. That's kind of an Izzo way of going about it, and it makes it difficult. Like, you see, they've got to be looking at it right now going, I don't know how we got beat. out rebounding them that badly. Like Ohio State's got to be scratching their head on their way home tonight. But,
I promise you, Chris Holtman's not. It's definitely
it's pretty much hard to explain. Like, I don't know how Indiana was able to win getting out rebounded that badly.
Seeing Xavier in the game definitely is a big difference for this team. I mean, he pushed the ball a lot at times. There were times where he had just hit another gear, and man, it's like, wow, we haven't seen that for a long time.
Yeah,
that's got to be a big help to this offense.
It is, and you know what? Like, there's Xavier has his shortcomings. He gets going too fast, and sometimes he's a little wild. But I think one of the things that we did notice is when the game was on the line in the last 6 minutes of the game, we did have a guy who had the ball in his hands all the time. He's a pretty good free throw shooter. I think he was 8 for 11 for the game, even though the 3 he missed, one was an air ball that might be the shortest air ball I've ever seen in Assembly Hall. I mean,
I heard it. I didn't see it.
Oh my gosh, it might not have traveled 8 feet. Like, it had to have slipped out of his hand or something.
Who was it shooting that?
Xavier.
That's what I thought.
And at the time, he was 5 for 5, and then he shot his next one and airballed it by 4 feet. Like, it was crazy. But Xavier was just that calming factor at the end. Like, you could even tell Trey Galloway was looking for him. Like, they were all trying to get the ball into his hands. Not because he's a great free throw shooter. He's more than adequate free throw shooter, but he's
confident.
He's the guy that they're all looking for. And, I'm not sure we win this game, even though I think Gabe Cupps will have an outstanding basketball career at Indiana and be unbelievable maybe even later this season. I'm not sure we have that calming factor at the end of the game. And to say Xavier's the calming factor, people are going to argue with me.
You didn't think you were going to be saying that?
Yeah, I didn't. But he definitely. I feel much better as a fan with the ball in his hands, late in the game in that situation. Even though, I mean, yes, I'm the first one to say that play he made at the end of the first half it's just unexplainable. Like, he went way too early. Indiana had the last shot. Should have never been any of those issues that took place with the fouling too early, fouls to giving up the basket right at the end, like all of that. None of that should have happened.
He did score 6 straight points at the end of the game.
He did, but that play just can't happen. Like, right. You just can't do it. Too many bad things can happen. And Trey ends up picking up his second foul right at the end of the half. He gets his third one fairly early into the second half. And so you're like, oh, that didn't end up killing him, but it could have. And that's just the plays you can't have.
And because of the fouling, you got to see a little more CJ Gunn tonight, and he stepped up off the bench tonight more than we've seen him. As a matter of fact, this is the first time he's scored in double digits in his career in Big Ten play.
Is it?
He had 11 against Elon, I think, last season, but this is the first time in Big Ten play he's had double digits, and he was sure getting pumped up.
Well, it wasn't just his dunk at the beginning was awesome, but that, he didn't really do anything. Like, that was just a fast break opportunity that came out. But his baskets in the second half were all very timely. Like, those were big, big baskets. And so, we criticize him. I think he's earned that criticism from a lot of factors, but you got to give credit where it's due in a game like this tonight, because honestly, saying the same thing for him, which we'll probably say it about several different players, I don't think they win this game. Walker's usually been the guy coming off the bench that has been the scoring spark, and tonight it was CJ Gunn, and that's a nice thing to be able to say.
Well, and how good is it seeing somebody different, that it is someone different, not only someone different, but someone in a different position at the guard spot where Indiana has not gotten a ton of production. Now you're getting Xavier back. If you can get something out of CJ Gunn going forward, who knows? That could be a big game changer going into Big Ten play, because, man, they've got a long road ahead.
Oh yeah, I mean, Big Ten season's so early on, but that's why you look at the game against Nebraska, and I think most fans, including myself, have been a little bit disheartened coming into this game, because that was a poor showing at Nebraska. But it's like you say with this one here tonight, whether you lose by 1 or lose by 20 or win by 1 or win by 20, at the end of the year,
counts as a
they all are going to equal the same thing. And so it's hard to put that out of your mind. I know you guys got to give me my one time during every show where I get to refer to Coach Knight. But I mean, like the halftime of this game from Coach Knight would have been one of those that we listened to over and over again on YouTube for years and years to come, because it would have been one of those breaking stuff, throwing things. How could we possibly be that dumb?
And it's not about winning or losing. It's about future losing, because there's a lot of games that can probably be played the exact same way that Indiana played tonight, and they're going to lose.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of teams. You go 49. You get out rebounded 49-27 to any of the top 4 or 5 teams in the conference, and you're going to lose by 30. Like, it's not even going to be a chance where you have an opportunity to win. So,
and that was at home.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, we were the more athletic team, but it's pretty equal. But we weren't definitely out physical or athletic. They just out hustled us, I think. But it's also a concentrated effort to where, Coach Woodson's not going to make that excuse. He's going to say we didn't block out. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, it's hard for guys to get out rebounded that badly if they block out, and it's just facts.
How did you think of Banks and Walker's play tonight, especially on the defensive side?
I think Banks is having.
Is he regressing?
I mean, he's getting the opportunities. He seems to be the first or second guy that comes in off the bench pretty regularly, and quite frankly, I think that's probably going to dwindle down even a little bit more, because he's not giving Indiana a whole lot right now. And I'm not even talking about statistically. I don't need him to come in and make great plays. I need him to come in and be solid, get some defensive rebounds. If he would have, that's the one thing, guys, it's hard for them to, really see at the time. But if a guy like Banks could have come in tonight and just shored up the rebounding, just been a guy that seemed like the ball had glue on his hands and was getting all the rebounds, there's zero chance he comes out of the game, because they were struggling so bad to rebound. But, that didn't happen from him. And it was just Walker was decent. He was okay. Made it that goaltending call at the end. Like, that basket should have counted, I thought. He made a great move. That was a big basket for Indiana at the time. But they didn't get it. And so, Walker won't surprise me if Woody does make any change to the starting lineup. It won't surprise me if Walker's not the guy that ends up being in there. I think he's been pretty consistent and good for Indiana, and they're definitely going to need him in the Big Ten. Banks I think he's on the struggle bus right now a little bit.
Yeah. 4 turnovers on the night. That means 1 in the second half, because they had only 3 in the first half, which is a low number, but 1 in the second half. That's a big reason. That's not something we've seen a lot lately, but I don't know if that's part of X coming back. You would usually not think that it's an opposite kind of a thing, but that's huge in a game like this, that you gave up so many rebounds and you were able to take their turnovers and do so much with them. You're not giving them the opportunity to do the same back.
Yeah, I mean, the live ball turnovers that they had were big for Indiana, and you're exactly right. I mean, if you're not able to take care of the basketball and you get out rebounded, there's virtually zero chance you have to win. So if we're going to point to a factor, I mean, 4 turnovers is incredibly low, especially I didn't feel like Indiana walked it up the floor the whole game. And coming off of a game against Nebraska where we had 4 turnovers in the first 4 minutes easily, we had more turnovers than points at the beginning of the game. And every time it seemed like Indiana drove to the lane, it did not matter who was driving. They got the ball taken from them against Nebraska. Well, tonight, obviously, they did a better job of taking care of it. So, obviously, that was a big point of emphasis after the Nebraska game. And I'm sure I'll be surprised if rebounding isn't a big point of emphasis after this one.
You mentioned Walker. You could see him in the starting lineup at some point, sometime. Who would he replace in that lineup?
I mean, I could honestly make an argument for either Galloway or Mbako, either one of them. And I don't mean that. I want them all to play the same amount of minutes. Like, that's the thing with Galloway. I would probably do it with Galloway because
it ain't going to be Mbako.
He's a little more mentally tough. This point in his career, he's always played great coming off the bench. Just to try it out. here's the bad part in saying that. How can I say that and get people to understand? I don't in any way, shape, or form think that Trey Galloway is playing poorly to where he should be on the bench. I think his minutes might be better served for him if he comes in, is the first guy to come in. I don't see how that would hurt anything.
Yeah.
And
it may be a benefit to Indiana.
It could, and Walker may thrive in that role. Who knows? But at this point, I'd give it a try.
You have nothing to lose.
Galloway's not scoring the ball crazily. Like, he had a couple games early on where he was the go-to guy, it really seemed like. I think Malik's kind of settled into that role a little bit more now. And so, I don't know that it really matters. I've never been a person, Coach Knight told us early on, and, I thought it was just a way of them making excuses till I learned like he doesn't make excuses. But I mean, he told us early on, it doesn't matter who starts the game. Like, you'll know what I think of how you played by who finishes the game or finishes the half. And I'll tell you, I know Coach Knight kept track of it. And I know one year I actually got the recognition for it, but I was the guy who started more second halves that didn't start the game than anyone else on the team throughout the year. And that's as big a compliment as you can get from a coach.
Right.
And you don't see very many coaches do that. I mean, most coaches, whoever starts the game, unless there's major foul trouble or an injury, starts the second half.
Why do we see that? Why do we
just,
not see more coaches go with what's going on?
Just because there's more to just who's in the starting lineup than, what the heights are, guards, centers, forwards, and, who scores the ball and who doesn't. A lot of it's psyche. Mackenzie Mbako right now is a freshman who I'm sure he's a really tough kid, but right now, like mentally on the floor, like I wouldn't want to mess with his head. I wouldn't want to put him on the bench and then get him thinking, okay, he's probably never not started a game since he was, 5.
Yeah.
So why mess with that with him? Obviously, we know Galloway has had plenty of games with Indiana. He came off the bench and played fantastic. We're probably saying all this for just blowing air out of our mouths because it's probably not going to happen. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious Coach Woodson likes to stick with the lineups that he has, and we're probably going to see this one for the rest of the year.
Yeah, well, I don't doubt that because that's kind of how it has been. Indiana does get the win. This is a game that I called it a win, not because it was a quote unquote your typical must win, but simply because it's at home, and there are going to be a lot of 8 more opportunities on the road to lose.
Yeah.
So you've got to get those home wins, and now they go back onto the road and they're in a month, like you said, Kim Palm has picked them to be 1-7. Well, they've already gotten win.
One, yeah.
So now
you would assume the Minnesota game next Friday should be a win, but I mean, I don't know. That's the hard part as a fan right now. We go into every game kind of wondering what team we're going to see or what version of this team are.
And
we
it's a
gonna
different
see.
one every one.
Tonight
was a completely
different team. I mean, if you'd have given me Khalil Ware's stat line in this game prior to it starting, I would have told you we were going to lose by 15 or 20. I mean, it's just –
and the rebounding numbers.
No, if you'd have told me the rebounding numbers, I don't care what anybody else – unless you told me we made 15 threes. If you told me we got out-rebounded 49-27, I would have told you we got killed. Killed.
And you would have thought that. But managing to hold on to the ball, and that's big for the big guys. They have been having a lot of trouble with not turning the ball over, whether it's Malik Renew or Khalil Ware, those guys. They've been a little loose with the handle this season, but tonight that is not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, coming out of that last game at Nebraska, I mean, it was fumbleitis. Like everyone driving the ball to the basket was losing control of it, getting it taken from them. And that was just incredibly frustrating and hard to explain because this has not been a team that I think has been weak with the basketball driving into the lane. So, hopefully we'll look back on that as a fluke game. I compared it after the game to much like the Auburn game. It was very similar in that, you kind of were in it at the beginning, and then once it got away from you, you had zero chance of winning. And you just usually don't say that about Nebraska.
What do you learn from games like this where you probably should have been beaten, to be all honest with you, because the team was good enough to beat you. You did enough things bad that you should have been beat, but you did obviously enough things well that you were able to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those where there'll be two films. One will be the possessions they really want you to look at that were bad, like ones that you made blatant errors. I know at halftime I heard Coach Woodson talk his interview, and he said they missed a bunch of assignments of how they were supposed to be defending something schematically. And that's something they'll definitely look at. When you've got a game plan and you blatantly miss the game plan, that's something they're always going to go over, because you want to make sure, even if it's wrong and doesn't work, if you have a game plan and things way you're supposed to handle things, that's the way you do it. And that used to be, I'll be Bill Walton again, that was Coach Knight's big thing, where if you do it the way we teach you and the way you're supposed to, and it doesn't work, that's not your fault. And there was many, many times when we would guard something exactly the way you're supposed to, and Chris Webber or somebody would just make a play that was that good, and you don't ever hear anything. There's nothing bad about that. But in a game like this, rebounding is going to be, outside of the schematic things that they actually screwed up that they were trying to do, rebounding is going to be the key. I mean, they're going to watch every single rebound, 49 rebounds that Ohio State got. They're going to have a game film of that shows who didn't block out and why they got those.
And did you see anything from the game that, other than, it seemed like every time the shot went up, man, Ohio State had a handle on the ball.
I mean, it was 5 guys going, and like we said earlier, it was maybe 4 guys going or maybe 3 guys going. And when you've got people, and Ohio State's long and athletic also, just like Indiana. So, I mean, it's not like we were physically dominant over them. We're not playing, the Florida Gulf Coast or somebody we should manhandle. But in this scenario, you got guys that are just as athletic as you, and they're all going to the boards. I think they would probably look at this and say, we'd have probably been better off not to have sent 5 guys to the boards, because we gave up way too many easy baskets on the other end of it. Even if they weren't the breakaway, pick sixes where Indiana goes and lays it in, it was still Indiana forcing it a little faster than, what they definitely did against Nebraska. And when Indiana doesn't get easy baskets or easy opportunities, the offense struggles. I think no matter what game we talk about, win or lose throughout this season, I think we'll all agree if Indiana doesn't kind of push the ball a little bit, they struggle off on the offensive end. Teams are not going to let you bring it down, throw 2 passes and throw it into Malik or Khalil Ware inside and just let them dominate. They're not going to let you do that in the Big Ten.
Defensively, Indiana gets some credit tonight. They pushed Ohio State into a lot of turnovers, even though they got out rebounded, but they made hay off of those turnovers. But they also had at least two different times where they were down. Ohio State had made those big runs. But Indiana didn't just sit on the laurels. They came back and pushed it and made runs to come back, where a lot of teams would have kind of quit that, especially that second time. Boy, you look up and damn, Ohio State's up 11. You're like, wow. But they just kept at it, and I kept looking at the stats. Ohio State would be at one point they missed 10 out of 11 shots.
Yeah.
I know some of that's on Ohio State, but some of that's on Indiana's defense at the same time.
It is. And there were, I'm being pretty negative after a win, even though, there's a lot of things, I guess, to be negative about. But I looked at the game with 10 minutes and 50 seconds to go, and it was tied. And it was a timeout, and I honestly, sat here and thought, okay, what needs to happen right now? What Indiana players, who needs to take over? What needs to happen right now in order for Indiana to win this game? Because I wanted to be able to talk after the game and either be like, in the last part of the game, this is why they won or this is why they lost. I thought Indiana played reactively in the entire Nebraska game. Whatever Nebraska wanted to do, both offensively and defensively, Indiana was on the reacting side to that. And tonight, at the end, in the last 10 minutes. I didn't think Indiana necessarily on the defensive end dictated what Ohio State was going to do, but I do think offensively Indiana ran the stuff they wanted to run and kind of got the ball where they wanted to get it to, and they made a couple of shots, were very timely shots. CJ Gunn's 3 was just huge. So, I mean, with 10 minutes and 50 seconds to go, I kind of made a point of saying it's a tie game. You got 1/4 of the game to go. At home, you got to win this game. And they did. So I feel like I should be much happier and giddier about this win. It wasn't, I don't feel like we're coming out of it with a ton of
growth.
Yeah. Like going into the next game, I know what we're building on. Like I don't know what we're building on, and I'm not sure what we're going to do in the next game. But, we're 3-1 in the Big Ten, and that's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, it is, especially right now for a team that is picked to go 1-7 over this month, which I don't know about that. That's as tough a schedule as they have.
That's one you want to make sure you try to beat. you don't want that to come out and be accurate.
That's one of the harder ones. Ohio State's a good team. They've been playing well.
Well, and everyone picked them. There was all across the board, back at the Fox Studios and Casey Jacobson, everyone talked about it, and they wanted to give Indiana credit. They want to like this team. We all want. We do like the team. I shouldn't say it that way. We want to be confident in this team. They just have not given us that opportunity to be super confident in them. And when you go lose games by 20 to Nebraska and lose by 20 plus to Auburn and Kansas, and the games that we've gotten beat in badly, it's hard to wonder if we could be competitive against good teams. Ohio State, I think pretty much everyone has picked them in the top 4 of the Big Ten this season, and you just beat one of those teams, and you've put yourself in a better position than they are right now, and so that's where you got to keep yourself. I mean, this team could be much worse off than they are. They got a great chance to go to Rutgers, even though I feel that way every year. We're going to go to Rutgers this week and win, and we just don't seem to do it. That's what they always say. I don't understand that. I get Purdue was a tough place to play because it was
Jersey
loud.
people, man. They're tough,
they're mean.
man.
I guess they yell mean stuff.
They throw stuff at you, man. Who knows?
That makes it tough. I don't know. But this
They're
is
not as good,
this is
though.
not
They're
a very
not.
good Rutgers team, and they've got some good guards. They've got some guys that can score the ball. That's a little scary. But I mean, the guard that Indiana played against tonight, this guy from Ohio State is good. He is legit good. And as a sophomore, he's probably one of the best sophomores in the country. And Indiana did a great job. He was, I won't say a non-factor, but he was a little factor.
And that part of that is having Xavier back in.
It is a big
and
part
that
of
takes a lot of defensive responsibilities off of Indiana's guards.
Yeah.
They don't have anybody that has the speed that Xavier has.
Yeah.
And you could tell he looked like he was at 100%, man.
Yeah.
He was going hard.
Thornton's who I was talking about. He had 9 points on 17 shots, 4 of 17. I didn't look at what their overall shooting was. They were 25 for 69. So, yeah, they shot the ball pretty poorly, obviously. And you have to give Indiana credit. We always jump on them when they get killed from the three-point line, saying they're giving up too many easy shots. And in this case, they were able to hold them to not shooting the ball that well. So got to feel good about that.
Robert says he'll admit he's very critical of the team, but yes, he wants to see this team and the program as a whole play basketball like they remember. Well, yep, that would always be a good thing because they're going to need that if they want to make the tournament at the end of the season. And we talked about going to Rutgers next. That's a game that is one of those that, boy, if you could sneak that win out, that's another road win to match the one at Michigan. And it just gets a little bit of a monkey off your back, talking about how tough it is to play there, yada, yada. But getting that another conference win, that would be huge for this team.
Yeah, 3-1 is great. 4-1 is crazy. That puts you in a position where, you're way ahead of the curve. And if you can start out at 4-1 in this league, I don't think there won't be 2 other teams start out 4-1 in this league. So,
Ohio State, they were what, third going into the game tonight? Third
Well,
place?
they had one loss. Now they have 2 losses, so we're ahead of them. I mean, Purdue's probably going to be one of the teams that's 4-1, and I guess possibly I don't know. Illinois can't. No, Illinois can because they just got their first loss. So yeah, they'll be Wisconsin. Somebody there'll be 1 or 2 more of them, but you'll be in that elite top 4 teams,
which is a
if
good
you can
place
put
to
yourself
be.
in that position. And Rutgers, yes, I'll say it's a hard place to play because they've had good teams and very tough defensive teams in the past. I don't think they have that this year. I watched them play twice. They're good. They're not great. They're not as good as this Ohio State team, but it's on the road. It's a good – I think the schedule's playing out really good for Indiana right now. It's a good test.
Especially
not
with
a great
having
team.
to get Xavier back.
Yep, it is. And that's why, going through the Auburn game and all those, we would have loved to have Xavier for Auburn and Kansas. But the benefit – and he came back and played so poorly against Nebraska, I think people were kind of questioning, was he really healthy or not? I think tonight, you're right.
First came back.
Tonight he looked 100%, like 99%. He looked great. And so I don't just mean how he played. I mean physically, like quickness.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. Him with the ball,
wow.
people underestimate how good he is with the basketball.
How fast.
He went around the Roddy Gale guy tonight, who is their best defender, most athletic guy. He went around him like that guy was blindfolded. Like it was crazy how fast he went around. He had to foul him. He went around him so quickly, and that's not that easy to do.
Is the team having to catch up with that speed because they haven't had it? Since
but they played with it all year. They played with it all summer long, and they've played with it in the preseason and all that. Like it's just different. The team's different with Xavier. There's no question about that. It's just it takes them a little while to gel. This is not a team that has a bunch of old veterans on it that have played together for a long time. I mean, I guess you'll say Galloway and Xavier have played together for a long time, but other than that, no. I mean, these guys are all pretty new. I mean, we didn't know Kalower's name last year on January the 6th. So, I mean, we're still sitting here.
We're asking, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah.
How do you say that? What going into the next game, then what? But they've got to work on rebounding, obviously. And by work on it, I don't mean practice it. You don't. I hate when people say, "Oh, they got to go practice free throws." Bull crap. They don't need to practice them. They need to get either out of their head or, like you said, to get their motions corrected. It's not just to practice what they're doing kind of a thing.
And blocking out is, I mean, I hate to say it, it is pure effort. Like it is. It doesn't take athleticism. Yeah, it's a lot easier. I mean, is it easier for Calvert to rebound than me? Sure it is. I mean, he's tall and athletic and strong and all that. But can I block him out? Yeah. I mean, I could. It's just physically, it's the effort, and it's 100% the effort. And that's when watching a game film like this is miserable, because
you're going to see so many
you're
times
going to see how many
beat.
times a shot goes up and how many times you go like this, and start watching it instead of locating where your man is. Look, you go back and watch Coach Knight's videos that he made back in the 1970s on blocking out and all the different things, and they all say the same thing. As soon as the shot goes up, you locate your man and you go and make contact. It's simple. It's fundamental. It's one of the things you're taught at a very, very young age. It's just an effort thing. I mean, it's a focus. It's you gotta make the concentrated effort to do it. And that's where these practices suck, when you got to go practice the fundamentals to do that stuff, because the coaches don't make it easy on you. I don't think it'll never come around this way. No coach would do it this way, but coaches take it personally when they get out rebounded, because it's effort. Like it's almost like you didn't get your guys to play hard. And even though Ohio State lost, like I know they felt like they played harder, because when you get those offensive rebounds, it just feels like you're dominating the game. And they are probably on their way home right now, scratching their head, going, "How in the world did we lose that game?" Because I'm still not sure.
And there are people and teams that take great pride in things like rebounding. I mean,
Michigan State is the biggest example.
Look at Dennis Rodman. He made a career out of that, just being a great rebounder. And there's very shockingly, for as many guys that are very athletic that are not good shooters, it's surprising to me more guys don't become
very
specialist.
focused on being a rebounding specialist.
Defender, rebounding specialist.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just 100% effort guy.
Well, we cannot thank everybody enough for tuning in tonight for Indiana basketball post-game show after the game with Todd Leary, of course, live from Hoosier Hanks East over here off of College Mall Road here in Bloomington. Make sure you stop by and have the ISB special pizza, baby. I created my own pizza.
Did you?
Oh, it's awesome.
You eat junk on it, though. Most people probably aren't going to eat
great.
that.
We talk
You have like pineapples and garbage.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, you look like a pineapple.
No, man, I can't stand that stuff. It's got this beautiful butter and thin bottom crust, pepperoni, sausage, mushrooms, onions, banana peppers. Bam. That's it.
You lost me at the banana peppers.
Oh man, that's the stuff, man. But we can't thank everybody enough. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in, and most importantly to the man, the Todd father, for running us through everything tonight. I'll be back on Monday with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. When does Indiana play again?
Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
I was going to say, I was thinking Tuesday when they travel.
It is on Tuesday.
Tuesday night.
Peacock game. Peacock.
Oh my God, we'll be going through that again. What time is that Peacock
7 o'clock.
game? Well, they do have Peacock on
at Hoosier Hanks.
At Hoosier Hanks. So for those of you that are in Bloomington, you can come to Hoosier Hanks, watch the game.
We'll beat
and
Rutgers
then
together.
we'll have some pizza afterwards. But big thanks to everybody. We really appreciate you guys. Have yourselves a great rest of the weekend. Until Monday, for Todd Leary, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.